Oh, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the guys that set this up. I mean, all the team, the OWASP team here in Austin is awesome. ISSA, all the people that enter Austin. And I live in Round Rock, so technically I'm Austinite as well, I guess. All right, so I'm originally from up the road a little bit. I'm originally from this town called Marlin, Texas, and it's a one-horse town. It's a very small town, and we're growing up there. When I was 18 years old, I joined the military, and let me actually just take a step back a little bit. So my experience, U.S. Navy. I worked at NSA for a little while. I worked at DIA for a little bit. Did some work at DC-3, which is the Defense Cybercrime Center, and I did work at DARPA. So through all these different agencies and all these different things, I developed products. I actually developed tools, scripts, and all that stuff, which a lot of people do. And so over time, I've always wanted to create a product company, but everything I did, it ended up probably being services because that's the easy thing to do. And so a lot of security professionals, we always do services, which is kind of unfortunate. So over time, even when we're young, we grow up and we want to sell something, whether it be a lemonade stand or anything like that. Most of the time it's for money and for money only. And I see the same thing with the security industry. There are a lot of security vendors that make products for money. And a company purpose is to make money, but it doesn't originate from a core need. And what I've seen over time is most of the products that are actually very successful in cybersecurity are the actual tools that actually work the best over time. And I'm gonna name a list of products. I'm gonna talk about why they were created. So this is really pretty cool book called Start With Why. Have anybody read this book? It's a very fantastic book. It's a interesting read. It does a lot of case studies, and it looks at companies and it tries to say why they exist and why did Steve Jobs create Apple, or the purpose of the company. And in many cases, this is why the really good products become really really big companies become successful. In this book, it talks about how Apple wants to create disruptive technology, and their core theme is just to disrupt everything. They disrupt the computer game, music industry, everything. They just live for disruption. And so I'm going to go over a couple of products that have been successful in the security industry and tell you why I think they exist and why they were successful. So Nessus is very popular. Nessus has even been badmouthed because they make a lot of people use Nessus, and they say they're pen testing or they're doing security assessments, but they're running Nessus scan. But the cool thing about Nessus is it started off as an open source project, and I want to talk a little bit about that real quick too. So open source projects, I think open source project, I actually compare open source to the drug game, right? And this is why. There's people think that the average drug dealer on the street think that they're going to be able to sell drugs and they're going to be rich one day, and I think that's the same lure from open source software. So if you did a survey, I heard somebody told me that most open source projects end after a year, because in the security industry, I see it every year. There's DEF CON coming up, Black Hat coming up. People will start off an open source project, and they do it just to get a talk or whatever. And they're thinking that if they do it open source, they can pick up some kind of momentum, and it can be a product, and they'll build a company around it, right? But that doesn't work all the time. And so I'm going to go over a couple of companies that were open source, but they're the ones that everybody points to when they talk about, oh, I'm going to open source something and I'm going to kill it and we're going to be big. So I kind of recommend against open source until you can actually make a profitable business now. That's my new way of thinking. So Nessus, for instance, Nessus actually was created out of necessity. Now we look at the why Nessus was created, all right? So the reason why it was created is because it was a hacker. He wanted to do he wanted to discover remote vulnerabilities, right? And which is cool because it came out of a need. And people may look at the need and say it's a nefarious need, but it come out, the why was so I can do remote assessments, whether it was good or bad. Tripwire, another company that came up. Tripwire, the same kind of thing. Gene Kim was trying, from what I understand, Gene was trying to do assessments of determine whether files had changed, and it was pretty simple in the concept. He did hashes and he compared the hashes. Pretty novel concept, but it was a necessity, right? And this is what I think that we need to think about. These are the quote unquote outliers of the industry. There's also Snort. Snort automated the ability to look at PCAP files and create signatures. SourceFire became a big company. They went public, and now Cisco acquired them. But people, like I said, this is like fool's gold though when it comes to creating products, for sure. Metasploit's another one, local company. And the reason why I came to Austin is to work with Rapid7. I'm originally from Texas, and it was a great opportunity to get back here. So the brisket and all that stuff, could be consumed. So I work with HD Moore. A lot of people know him. I'm sure he's spoken here before at LASCON. But HD, he was doing pen testing, and he wanted to automate that process. And so he created a tool out of necessity, and it came up. The project got acquired by Metasploit. By Rapid7. A good friend of mine has actually did a spin off the Metasploit project, and he actually created this thing called Armitage, which a lot of people know. But the guy Raphael Mudge behind it, he created out of necessity for red teaming assessments. So that's what his passion was. That's what he pursued, and now he has a pretty good company. It's just him by itself, but I think what they call it is it's a lifestyle type business for him. He makes good money. He travels around the world. He teaches, and he makes money off what he's doing. But it started out with something he really, really needed, not something from anybody else. And so a lot of the books I read is called Scratching Your Own Itch. You need to find something that you are passionate about doing. And then at the end of the day, I'll talk about later, that's what like angels and VCs want to look for. They want to look for like, is this guy really passionate about it? Do they understand business and all that stuff? But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go the VC route, and that's why I have Armitage up here, because Raphael doesn't want any VC money, he doesn't want any angel money, but he makes pretty good money pursuing his passion. So anyway, I came here to Austin to work with Rapid7. I worked with the Metasploit team. When I was at Rapid7, I actually came on as the community manager for Rapid7. Now, I didn't read the job description before I took the job, right? So it wasn't a good fit because I'm a tech dude, and so community manager type stuff it's a marketing role. But what was cool about that is that I got to work closely with Rapid7 marketing and their sales team, and I got to learn a lot about how business is done. So ended up working for them almost 2 years. There were some transitions and stuff, and I ended up getting fired by Rapid7. And so before that, I was actually reading a lot of books. One of the books I read was called The Lean Startup, because I've always built tools. I actually built tools for Rapid7. It's funny because I was a community manager, but I still wanted to be a techie. And so that just wasn't a good fit. And so I was reading these books. Lean Startup is a book that all people, if you want to, that's like somewhat of a Bible now. Everybody's talking about lean, agile development and all this stuff. So that's a good book. But the book that kind of blew my mind was this book right here. It's called Rework. And if you're talking about doing any kind of company or anything or anything like that, you need this book. Like totally blew my mind. It's written by Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen, DHH. He actually is the guy that developed Ruby. And so what was cool about it is that when I worked with the Metasploit team a little bit, they programmed in Ruby. The product was Ruby on Rails, and that's a big deal. Actually, there's a conference going on called Keep Ruby Weird or something. And it's actually going on downtown. My son's at that. My son's a really good Ruby programmer. He's at that conference right now. So what this talked about is this, and this is when we're going to get down to building a product and attracting money. So what this book talked about is and this is the cool thing about it. I'm gonna put my hot dog stand up. You see this extravagant hot dog stand, right? And I think that when people think about security products, they think like this. It has to have all these bells and whistles on it, all these analytics, all these things. So at the end of the day, when most people have in mind, look, I could never build that, that system because it has to have all this stuff and all that stuff. But what the book Rework talks about is you need to get to your epicenter of what you're trying to do. And that epicenter is what are you trying to accomplish? Now, since this is an AppSec conference, there's a lot of people in here, and I know some of you at this conference in general, a lot of people have ideas to do something a better way. It's a lot of vendors in there. Maybe you have an idea that you think they're not doing it right. But the only thing you need is that singular focus, because the book talks about what is that epicenter. So the epicenter of a hot dog stand is the hot dogs. So you don't have to have all that other stuff, but if you just have a really, really the best hot dog on earth that's going to get people from traveling for miles around, that's what you need to worry about. Don't worry about the competition. So I was really gung-ho, and I created a Ruby on Rails application called Threat Agent. And I was like, oh, this is going to be my company. And following the whole rework methodology, what rework talked about is it talked about building it and building a singular thing. So I was like, I'm going to tell you all the mistakes I made, right? So big mistake was like, I actually created Threat Agent just to make things easier for other people, but I wasn't really super passionate about it. So what I did is I built the OSINT engine, and I actually, people compared it to kind of like Maltego. I did it and it was like automated. You put in a company and a domain, and it did all this OSINT on them, which is very cool, right? But I can't lie, I wasn't really passionate about it. And I've never been passionate about offensive type stuff. I'm a defender. I was in the Navy. I've worked at NSA. So all my life, I've been like trying to defend stuff. So I kept on building stuff, and I wasn't scratching my own itch. And that's the problem a lot of times with people. If you're not super passionate about that thing, it's going to end up being falling short of what you want it to be. I created several things. So what happened, I created the OSINT engine, and then I kept on building more and more stuff. And people, if you know me, I mean, like every week I was building a new tool. Boom, 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 and releasing them all online. I built all these dang tools that could be used for hacking, quote unquote. And I wasn't really super passionate about hacking. I mean, I can do it, but I'm not really, that's not my bag, baby, as Austin Powers would say. I created this thing called HoneyDocs, another Ruby on Rails application. It was pretty popular. People spoke at DEF CON and Black Hat and all these different conferences talking about stuff that I built. What this was, it was a pretty cool thing. It actually let people track documents if they were open across the world, right? But that was another like offensive type thing, deception thing. I really wasn't super passionate about it, but I built it, right? Had it up for over a year. Threat Agent was up for well over a year. And so I was like, man, this tool really doesn't fit, but I'm going to build this anyway. So the name of this tool was called Exfiltrate. And I built a tool to actually imitate compromised servers, which is definitely relevant for for the OWASP type crowd. I was just leaking data from these fake servers. And I built this, but what happened was I got fed up and tired of doing the whole Threat Agent thing, maintaining all these apps. And so what I did is like, look, I'm going to shut down all the stuff and just keep the OSINT engine, right? Then a couple of people started contacting me, and this is where the Lean Startup book comes up, right? So the Lean Startup talks about testing, validation of your idea, and it also talks about pivoting a lot. So pivoting is like you build something and then people kind of like something else, and then you kind of like take that pivot and you run with that, right? So a lot of times when we build stuff, we don't understand what the ramifications are. So I built Exfiltrate, and all of us, I built it, I kind of shut it down, and I only offered the OSINT engine, right? So what happened after that is somebody came to me and said, hey, look, Marcus, where's this Exfiltrate tool at? I've been using it. I've been demoing it to customers because I sell DLP, and I'm closing a lot of deals. So I wasn't making any money off Exfiltrate, but there was people out there getting paid off of it. I was like, dang, that's crazy, right? And so if people are making money off of it, there must be something there. So what I decided to do is do this. I created this thing called Fire Drill Me. In the Navy, we do general quarter drills all the time. And any Navy sailors in here? No sailors? Wow, that's sad. Huh? Yeah. So I was a sailor. We did general quarters all the time. Military people, they do drills all the time. And so I created this thing called Fire Drill Me. And actually is a pivot from threat agent to all the other stuff until where I'm at now. So when I worked at DC3, I worked with a popular hacker named Johnny Long, and we would do these intense scenarios. We built an imitation enterprise network, and on that network we did a lot of different simulations, and we would have government people on another side. These are like law enforcement agents from all these three-letter agencies and stuff. It was up near NSA, so we had all these different spy agencies trying to find us on the network. So me and Johnny would imitate Chinese hackers on the network and all these different other threat actors. And so anyway, by doing all that, I learned how all these actors look on the wire. I learned their tools. I learned all this stuff. So I'm trained as a hacker. I just don't like it that much. It's not really my passion, right? But I know how to imitate them, right? And so I created this thing. It's kind of a pivot off the exfiltrate thing that I was doing, and I actually that's what I do now. But let me talk a little bit about, this is where the story gets real crazy, right? And totally blows my mind, right? So I create this FireDrill.me, and then I actually start looking into how I'm gonna get money to like fund it, because before I was trying to bootstrap it, and that's kind of hard, right? And pro tip number one, right? I wouldn't build things for hackers. If you're thinking about building a business on yourself, do not build stuff for hackers, because they don't pay for nothing, right? And that was another part of the threat agent thing. I built all these awesome hacker tools, but nobody wanted to use anything if they had to pay for it. It was a subscription type service. Don't build anything. If you're planning on building stuff for hackers, you're wasting your time. So I was looking up, I was actually thinking about like going the angel VC route and all that stuff. And so what was crazy is this accelerator out of DC contacted me, and the name of the program is Mach 37. So if you're thinking about doing a company or something, keep them in mind at some point. Mach 37 is a cybersecurity accelerator, right? That's what they do. They take people like me that are geeks, and they give you funding. They give you $50,000, and they take 6%. It's a 6% equity stake. Oh my bad, it's an 8% equity stake in your company, right? And they actually give you this training, like this really ridiculous. You get to meet like people that invented the internet. I mean, like all these people, they're like, you know, secret spy dudes, you know, people, government people. It's the craziest thing I've ever been in my life. I would have did the program for free. It's that awesome, right? But the thing about it is that I'm gonna share with you is they actually helped me like think better about how to do a business. And today is the first step of me, you know, talking to people that are technical people on how you can do it too. Because I'm tired of all the people out of, you know, Stanford and all the and MIT. I'm tired of them guys, you know, making all the money. So I want the security community, no matter where you're at, I want guys to be able to do this too. So this is funny. So it's this company called Disrupt 6. And I didn't know who Disrupt 6 was, but I saw a Washington Post. As soon as they called me, I started looking up Mach 37. And so this was a Washington Post op-ed or something like that. Or not, it was a piece on the Mach 37 program. And some of those dudes, or two of those dudes are really popular on the hacker scene. One of them is G Mark. He's like really popular around hackers, DEF CON, Black Hat, all that stuff. And the one that I was cool with, I knew really well, is Joe Klein. He's all the way on the right with the suit and tie on, right? So Joe is an IP version 6 guru, and I've been knowing him for years, right? This dude is awesome. So when I looked at their website, I was like, dang, I know Joe. So I immediately called Joe up, and I said, Joe, what the heck, man? You're in this program. And he said, yeah, man, it's awesome, and all that stuff. So, you know, referrals the best way, right? So I went to this website called F6S. And if you're thinking about doing a business or startup, I would definitely recommend you check out this website. This website is like a social network for people seeking venture capital, right? it's crazy. You can just put in what you want to do, and then companies contact you and all this other stuff. But what the weirdest thing happened, I wasn't going to Mach 37. I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And then, so I started trying to pursue the venture capital route. So I actually put in a profile and all that stuff. And I followed Mach 37 on F6X. I didn't apply to them, right, at this point. And this is where it gets real freaky. So this is my boy, JP Bourget. Some people might know him from the hacker scene or whatever. So JP, he saw me follow them. He saw Mach 37 follow me on Twitter. He saw me follow Mach 37 on F6X. And without my knowledge, JP's company actually got funding through Mach 37. So JP calls me up. He lives in the Virginia area. He just moved to Virginia. And he calls me, hey, Marcus, I just saw you follow, Mach 37. Are you in the program? You can stay at my house because I have a spare room if you're coming up. And I was like, dude, I'm not in Mach 37. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, do you know something I don't know? So what ended up happening is I actually talked to Rick from Rick Gordon is the managing partner at Mach 37, and he said, hey, he wanted to talk to me, and they was going to fit me in. They had 6 companies that they were going to fund, and they were going to fit me in if I had to do one thing. They were going to put me through Shark Tank. And the TV show is one of my favorite TV shows now. But before Rick Gordon from Mach 37 ever called me, he said, look, Marcus, you can fly up Tuesday. We're starting our program Tuesday. You can actually come pitch us your idea, right? And so I called Joe Klein up, my boy Joe up, said, hey, Joe, how they want me to pitch them. What I do? He said, hey, dude, go watch Shark Tank. And so I was like, dang, Shark Tank, huh? Because I've heard people talk about it a lot. Never really paid it too much attention. Never watched one episode, actually. I knew Mark Cuban was on there, and I'm a Dallas Mavs fan, but I never checked it out. And so then I saw this dude, Kevin. I don't know if you can see Mr. Wonderful too well, but this dude right here is amazing on that show. And he's like a hardcore business dude. And I've met my share of Mr. Wonderfuls up in the DC area already. It's hilarious. So there's actually guys like him that do exist. And so they actually try to vet your business savvy and how are you going to make money and all those things. And if anybody here if you ever want to talk about any of your business ideas, you can hit me up, because I haven't made a lot of money yet, but I kind of know what these people want to hear, right? So going back to my DC 3 days, and this is where I'm gonna a little bit talk about my experience and why I'm doing this, right? So remember, I said the whole important thing about is why you create these products. And so I'm going to go a little bit. So this is going to be kind of weird, because I'm going to show you like how you could represent your idea at this point. So I'm not pitching you. I'm just showing you kind of how a pitch looks, right? For a cybersecurity company, right? And we need help. So and the reason why I'm saying that we need help. So if anybody in here, this is my philosophy now. Instead of complaining about the tools and security's messed up, and if anybody follows me on Twitter, you know I complain a lot. So I've taken a different perspective, and what I've done is I've actually started instead of complaining, let me try to do something about it, right? And that's the only thing that's going to actually help. So if we have smart people that are creating smart tools, instead of the industry giving us the status quo garbage that doesn't work, and there's a lot of garbage that don't work. So I'm going to show you, this is how kind of I would pitch my product if I was pitching it today, right? I'm not going to get into financial because it's a whole different discussion, but I'm going to just show you kind of how a product pitch looks real quick. You ready? Here we go. Yeah. I feel like what's this dang show? I feel like Living Color. You ever remember that show? No, I'm just like, you want to hear it? I wrote a song about it. You want to hear it? Here you go. Go for it. So, all right, y'all remember this incident? Yeah, Captain Sully. He goes down to the Hudson, but miraculously everybody made it off. Come to find out, Captain Sully, he was kind of a beast, right? This guy trained. He was in the Air Force. He trained other pilots. He was an expert, right? And also, beside that, any pilot does tons and tons and tons of flight simulations, right? And those flight simulations Um, this is not the first time he landed in the water, because they would have did these kind of things in a flight simulation. And so that's the kind of approach that I want to bring to network security. Network security, most of the time, it's trial by fire, and nobody is able to do simulations in their own environment. You can take somebody to SANS, you can take somebody to any other course, but most of the times, like at SANS, what they do is they train people on open source stuff that's not in their environment. Now, any big enterprise has a lot of tools deployed all around the network, but there's no way to actually test on your network until now. What I'm doing is I'm creating a product that actually, and anybody stepped in late, I'm talking about this is how you kind of pitch your product, right? So I'm not pitching the audience, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a tool to test personnel, products, and procedures, because we know that these always don't work. Sometimes your people aren't trained, sometimes the products aren't working well, and there's no way to validate procedures unless you go through this iteratively. And that's how we did it in the military, right? So what I'm doing with the product is I'm actually I'm calculating data loss. I'm doing financial loss calculations based on how much data a company might lose, and I'm actually grafting it out. And if you're doing a product, make sure that you can do some kind of reporting and all that stuff, right? Because that's what gets management's eye. You want to, and for this case, the proposition that I was making to them is, look, I'm helping teams get better over time. So you don't want to see this go opposite of that. You don't want to see a hockey stick of your people getting worse, right? You want to see everything going down. So that's like the value proposition. Also, like route to market. This is important because like when you actually have an idea, it's important to try to get the idea to market. And you can partner with independent verification and validation. They call them IVV. Those are your KPMGs, PwCs, Deloitte, all those people. If you can actually make a product that those people can sell, you might have something in. Also, security company partnerships. I personally reached out to several different companies, but there's the big rule in if you can't sell something yourself, nobody's going to sell it for you. So if you have a product idea or something, and you think that you could sell it first, and then give it to the partner and say, look, this is how you sell it, right? They're not going to figure out how to sell it. I don't care. And also security bars will sell anything. But what you want to do is you want to make it easy. Like when a security bar does bring up your name, you want to have a website presence and all that stuff to actually sell your product for you. So with FireDrove Me, one of the things I'm doing is I'm doing something that's software as a service. And this is really important because like most people nowadays, they're tired of antivirus type agents. Nobody wants to do agents anymore, right? So you want to, if you can, try to create something that's in the cloud. They don't have to try to install on there. And what I'm doing is I'm doing on-demand type attack simulation. And this is kind of like, but for whatever product you have, you want to make sure that you can try to formulate good reporting and analytics. And so this is the company I created, and real quick, I'm at the end of my slides, but I left a little bit of time. So if anybody wants to ask me questions about that VC type thing, I can definitely help you out. I can tell you what they're looking for. So what they're looking for is can they make their money back ultimately, right? And it's a couple of things that I want people to understand. Like, as far as like equity goes, and like sometimes people like entrepreneurs and security people that aren't like in the business world, they kind of like two things that we make mistakes on. I noticed that nobody wants to share their idea, right? And the book Rework talks about how ideas are dime a dozen. Like, don't be scared to share your ideas with people, right? I see it all the time where people will be like, no, you got to sign an NDA. I had a dude tell me I had to sign an NDA for me to talk to him and try to help him. I say, dude, nobody signs NDAs. Like, no angel investor, no VC, nobody's going to sign any kind of, that's not going to happen. So you got to be willing to share your ideas so people can actually help you out. All right, number two is people have the equity thing kind of messed up in their head. Uh, the equity thing is pretty interesting. Like for the Mach 37, I'm an early stage company. They gave me $50,000 for 8% equity, right? And some people are like, man, my idea is worth $10 million or whatever. But watch a little bit of Shark Tank, and it'll bring you back to reality a little bit. Um, but the big thing is like the reason why you need to actually have vendors, not but VCs and angels actually invest in you is so you can take your idea to the masses, right? It doesn't matter what your idea is or what your product is. It does not matter if nobody ever uses it or sees it. And so since security is such a big scale issue, what you have to do is you gotta get capital to actually take your idea to the masses, right? So now, and somebody says like, okay, cool. And so every time you do an equity round, like every time you see a company doing like a seed round, so every time you do like a round A, you're going to give up 30% equity in your company. And so that by the time if you do 3 rounds, like the original founders are only going to have something like 8% equity, 10% equity in the original company. So be prepared to give up a lot of equity over time if you go that route. And that's kind of scary. Like, man, I started this company, but the people that invest in you, they want you to succeed as well. Yeah, they want to get paid and all that stuff, but it's in everybody's interest. If they put money in, they have skin in the game. They want you to be successful as well. So be prepared to have like a low equity stake in the long run. But hopefully, if your company is doing 100 million in revenue, and when they sell security companies or like tech companies, like software companies, you're doing what they call a 5 times to 10 times multiple. So if your company's doing $100 million in revenue, you can sell that company for like $1 billion. That's a big dream. But if you have 8% of $1 billion, you're laughing to the bank. So that's the deal. You got to build. You're trying to build a product, build a company, and like increase valuation, and prefer it be software. Because a lot of us, our mindset is like, I'm good at what I do. I got my CSSP, but what you're doing is you're trading your time for money. And when you create software, you just create software once and sell it a lot of times. So that's a couple of things I learned. The most important thing is don't be scared to share your idea. If you can't code, maybe learn how to code enough to put together a POC, because that actually helped me out big time because I actually can code now. And just we need more tech people people to understand the problems, because what's happening is instead of having a technology-driven industry, what the InfoSec industry is now is a market-driven industry, where people are just like spazzing out at the latest attack, vector and all these other things, and it's just sad business, and I hate it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see me a lot of haterade in my blood sometimes. So the first thing you need to do is the most important part is to be able to sell it yourself. So if you can get what they call it in this industry, they call them alpha or beta customers, where you can actually sell it to a company for some kind of amount of money, or sometimes they'll take like an alpha customer, if it's the right alpha customer, like if it's like Fortune 500 or something, if you can get in there and get them to kind of vet what you're talking about or vouch for you, the best idea is to have a paid alpha or a paid beta customer. And so you can say, look, Exxon or something paid for this, right? Then you can say, okay, cool, there's a real interest, a real company bought what you're doing. So that's the best way, is to sell it yourself. When do you start developing? It kind of depends on your agreement with the company you're working with. Most companies have IP clauses in your contract, right? So if it has any kind of IP clause in your contract, you can't develop on your own time, right? But so my situation, Rapid7 fired me, and I was like, all right, cool, I want to do something else. I want to do my own thing. I want to create technology. When I was leaving Rapid7, actually, I got a patent when I was at Rapid7 because I created something called Browser Scan is the product they called it. So I actually built a Rails app. So I kind of knew how to build apps and deploy them and all that. So that's the cool thing about working at Rapid7. It didn't work out long term, but short term I learned a lot, and I worked with some pretty cool people there. So the answer to that question is, look, whatever your employment clause says about IP, you got to follow that. But all the information that you can learn as much as you can from your current employer. Yeah, so the cool thing about being an accelerator, you get to learn, hey, and I have, my lawyers are like really awesome lawyers too. I have like, I'm lawyered up now, so I can kind of answer that question. So what you do, if you have an idea, you can actually file a provisional patent. It costs like, it's cheap. It's probably like $1,000 if you pay a lawyer to do it. You can file multiple of those. And what that does, they call it, you're planting your flag. And then over time, as you develop that patent, you have up to a year to file the full patent. So it's called a provisional patent. So what they do value from that is it totally depends, but the best thing you can do for an investor is to actually sell, or have people actually using it and having it deployed. But yeah, if you have sales, the patents look great. Actually, the patent that I did at Rapid7, it looked like it got, they actually, you can actually, I think Silicon Valley Bank, if you have patents, you can actually take loans on patents and IP. So there's all kind of different ways that people are figuring out how to make money. So what happens in that situation, and it sounds like kind of like what you're talking about, you have IP, you have a patent, people can actually take a lien on that patent, and it could be a lot of money. They could say, this idea is worth $3 million or something like that. I don't know how they do the valuation on it, but at the end of the day, if you go out of business something, the bank maintains that patent. And so, yep. And so, big picture is, you don't have to like get VC money, but if you think that you have like a massive idea, and people copy like crazy, man. I got like some of the things that I built over the last couple of years, I got people blatantly copying it and ripping it off, and I've seen like 3 or 4 businesses created, even using my exact language of what I say, like total rip-offs of what I do. And so you're going to be ripped off. And that's why I say that if you do the VC route or the angel route and just get outside investment, it helps you scale well faster, because there's a lot of copycats. If you go through the vendor booth, bless the vendors because they actually help fund this. Everybody's talking the same thing in there most of the time. So, and this is the light version of me ranting. So follow me on Twitter if you want to get the real deal. So. But that's it. I think I'm pretty much at the time. So you can follow me at FireDrillMe, and I'm going to just go back. And if you can, that's me. Follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much. Hey, thanks for the LASCON people, man. This conference is awesome. These guys are really good guys, and they pretty much. I see the guys. They do OWASP, ISSA. These guys are awesome. Hey, thanks Austin in general. Peace.